Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. In this video we will be continuing to talk about the rules of Noon Sakina and Tanween, and we will be talking about idgham. So bismillah, let's go ahead. In terms of learning outcomes and what you should be able to get out from this video, number one, you should be able to analyze what idgham means and the mechanism of idgham. Number two is you should recognize and know the letters of idgham that come after a noon, sakina and tanween. Number three is you should be able to differentiate between an idgham with a ghunnah and an idgham with no ghunnah, and what's the mechanism there. And number four is you should be able to identify and recognize some of the common mistakes with idgham. So bismillah, let's go into the details. So the first point is, what is idgham? What is idgham to start off with? Let's start with an example. When we say the words فَمَنْ and يَعْمَلْ, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ, we're used to hearing it as فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ. So that is idgham, and that's an idgham of the noon, so with noon sakina, and then there is a letter of idgham after it, which is the ya. So when a letter of idgham comes after a noon sakina or tanween, idgham happens. So in simple, idgham is combining two letters together. So what's the applied definition of idgham? Idgham is combining two letters together. In this example, the noon, faman, and the ya, ya'mal, famay. So that's the two letters combined together. Where the second letter now has a shadda, famayya, famayya. The second letter now has a shadda. It's an emphasized letter. And you're in the makhraj of the second letter. You're in the makhraj of the ya. فَمَيَّ فَمَيَّ. We're not mentioning the noon. We're not in the makhraj of noon. We're not touching the noon. We're not saying فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ. We're not touching with the tongue. So you're in the makhraj of the second letter, makhraj of the ya. And then you lift off from that idgham, you lift off from that combination in one movement of the makhraj of ya. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ. So once again, idgham is combining two letters together. In this scenario, noon sakina or tanween, with a letter of idgham which comes after it. And with that, the letter that comes after it becomes a letter which has a shadda, an emphasized letter. And you're in the makhraj of the second letter, and you lift off the second letter in one movement. Another example with tanween, خَيْرًا يَرَهُ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. So here the tanween, khayran, that noon in the tanween is being merged or combined with the ya, khayran yarah, with the same exact concept. So let's move on to point number two. What are the letters that come after noon sakina or tanween that cause idgham? The letters are combined in a simple statement or a simple word, yarmulun. So the ya, the ra, the mim, the lam, the waw, and the noon. So when these letters come after a noon sakina or tanween, the tajweed rule of idgham applies, the combining of these letters with the noon or the noon sakina or with the tanween. Now with these letters of idgham, some of them, when they are combined with the noon sakina or tanween, when there is a idgham with these letters, there is a ghunnah. And with others, there is no ghunnah, there is no nasal sound. So we call that idgham with ghunnah and idgham with no ghunnah. The letters which have an idgham with ghunnah are combined in the statement yumin, in the word yumin. So the ya, the waw, the mim, and the noon. When these four letters come after a noon sakina or tanween, the idgham has a ghunnah. Let's take some examples. So the first one, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ فَمَنْ, you can hear there's a ghunnah coming from the nasal cavity. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ. And with the waw, مِنْ وَلِي مِنْ وَلِي. With the mim, خَيْرٌ مِّنْ خَيْرٌ مِّنْ. And the noon, شَيْءٍ نُكُرُ شَيْءٍ نُكُرُ. Now on the other hand, the letters that have idgham with no ghunnah are the lam and the ra. So if the lam and the ra come after a noon sakina or tanween, there is an idgham with no ghunnah. Let's take some examples. So with the lam we say milladun, milladun. So you don't hear a غنة with the lam. من لدنه. And with the ra, غفور رحيم. So this one is a good example. We can see here that there is no غنة. So when I say رورا رورا, there is no غنة coming from the nasal cavity. And I can even check it. If I were to close my nose, the sound should not change. رورا رورا. So that's with the, not closing the nose. And if I close the nose, رورا 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 رورا. So that tells you that there's no sound, no غنة coming from the nasal cavity. Now if we compare that to the example we started with, فَمَن يَعْمَلْ مَن يَعْمَلْ. So here the idgham here has a غنة. So let's test that. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ فَمَن. If I close my nose, the sound should change. فَمَن. So that shows that there is a nasal sound, there is a غنة coming from the nasal cavity with the idgham with غنة. So idgham with غنة is when you have the letters of yumin, the ya, the waw, the mim and the noon after a noon sakina and tanween, and an idgham with no غنة if you have the lam or the ra after the noon sakina or tanween. Now let's dissect this idgham with غنة and let's talk about this mechanism. What's actually happening? Now you remember when we spoke about makharij a while ago, in a previous video, we said that the noon, the makhraj of noon, has two parts. One part is from the tongue, and another part is from the nasal cavity. So with the idgham with غنة, the part from the tongue disappears, because you're going to the makhraj of the next letter, because that's the definition of idgham. We said you go to the makhraj of the second letter. So the makhraj of the tongue disappears. But what remains is the makhraj or the غنة from the nasal cavity. So when you say فَمَي, so the ya normally does not have a غنة, but with the idgham now, what's remained of the noon is the غنة from the noon. So that is now applied to the idgham with the ya. So we can imagine it as فَمَي and then يَعْمَل, فَمَي يَعْمَل. And a very intricate point here is the first ya, because now the ya has a shadda, right? The first ya, فَمَي, that's the one that has the غنة sound, the prolonged غنة. فَمَي. Then the next ya, there should be no غنة. And that's a very intricate detail. So you say فَمَن يَعْمَل, and I'll split it now. فَمَن يَعْمَل. So the first ya has the غنة, the second ya should not have a غنة. So let me try to pronounce it incorrectly and see if you can hear this. So incorrectly would be to say فَمَن يَعْمَل فَمَن يَعْمَل. So there was a غنة all the way through, and that is not quite correct. While it should be فَمَن يَعْمَل فَمَن يَعْمَل. And as we said, if we compare it with an idgham with no غنة, غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ, there is no nasal sound, there is no غنة coming with رُورَ رُورَ, no nasal sound in this one. Now a small point here is that idgham applies when it's two words. So if the noon sakina and one of the letters of idgham come in the same word, idgham is not applied. And that's only for 4 words in the Quran. And they are qinwan, sinwan. So here there is a noon and a waw after it. Normally if the waw comes after a noon sakina, there's an idgham. But here we don't say qinwan or siwan, we say qinwan and sinwan. And the same goes for ad-dunya and bunyan. So here there is a noon sakina and they after it, but we say ad-dunya. So when the letters of idgham come after a noon within the same word, idgham does not apply. Now let's move on to talk about some of the most common mistakes with idgham. The first one is not applying it correctly and actually, and pronouncing the noon clearly. So if we're saying فَمَن يَعْمَل, that's not idgham. We pronounce the noon, we're not in the makhraj of the ya. So that's not quite correct, that's not idgham. The second common mistake is with regards to غنة, which we spoke about in length. So specifically actually with the waw and the ya. So a lot of the times a mistake would be done where when there is an idgham with the waw, we only make the idgham and have the sound come from the lips and not the nasal cavity, and we don't have a غنة, and that's not quite correct. So the word min wa wali, min wali. There should be a ghunnah with this one. We shouldn't be saying miu, miu with no ghunnah. So you can tell if I'm doing it incorrectly, and I'll close my nose. Miu, miu, no change to the sound. Therefore, that's not the correct idgham because I just did not apply a ghunnah there while there should be a ghunnah. So I should be saying min wali. And the same with the ya. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ. There should be a ghunnah. We shouldn't be saying فَمَي. We shouldn't have all the sound come from the mouth with no nasal or ghunnah sound. And the third mistake is to introduce a ghunnah where there shouldn't be a ghunnah with the lam and the ra. So mir rabbik, there shouldn't be a ghunnah. So we shouldn't be saying mir rabbik, mir. That's introducing a ghunnah to that idgham while there shouldn't be a ghunnah within that idgham. Now let's revisit those learning objectives and make sure we can tick them off. Number one, we said you should be able to analyze what idgham means. And we said it is combining two letters when there's a noon sakina and tanween in this scenario with the second letter. The second letter then has a shaddah. We're in the makhraj of the second letter and then we lift off the second letter in one motion. The second learning objective was to identify the letters of idgham, and they are combined in the word yarmulun. Correct. And the third objective was to understand idgham with no ghunnah and idgham with ghunnah. So idgham with ghunnah, the letters are yumin, correct, and idgham with no ghunnah, the letters are lam and ra. And the fourth learning objective was to understand some of the common mistakes and understand the mechanism of idgham. And I think we covered that in detail. We'll see you in the next video, Insha'Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.